You're in big trouble, though, pal. I eat pieces of shit like me for breakfast.
You eat pieces of shit for breakfast?
No.
Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast of Champions Season 1, Episode 3. I am your co-host, Rennie Floyd. This doesn't happen to someone with John or Parker as a name, but does anybody ever mispronounce your name?
I get Patrick a lot, or Peter.
Ever since I was a young lad, people would, like, especially teachers or, like, even, just like people that are like well-read people, they'd look at my name and they'd go, is it Rennie? And I'm like, first of all, neither of those are names. Reen, you've never met a Reen.
I meant Irene.
My sister's name is Irene.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and a Rennie, you've never met anyone named Rennie. So
well, when I was in the womb, I met Irene.
Shout out. Anyway, so this is Breakfast of Champions. I'm Renee. Parker's here as
Patrick,
well.
Or
Patrick,
Peter, or
Sean Patrick Williams,
Paul, or any of the Fab
John
Four,
Jingles
or
Jake.
the 12 disciples.
This podcast is, if you haven't been with us for the first 2 episodes, is about breakfast foods and violence. 2 things we are both very passionate about. They're integral in our lives.
You got to be fueled to fight.
That's right. So last we left, we created some donuts. We created a little grading scale for that. We talked a little bit about our personal journey when it came to, firstly, breakfast foods and chefing and food love. And then we went off the beaten path and went to the music side of our life last episode. And so this episode, we're going to kind of try to focus on violence. But before we get started, as always, we have some donuts. And I'm excited because I'm blind. I'm going in here blind. I just see bags here. So,
all right.
What do you got for us this morning?
This is my go-to donut spot for the last 8 years. It's called K Donuts, Fort Worth. It's a husband and wife that run the place. They're always there. They get I see them get there sometimes at 12:30, 1 in the morning. They open at 5. They're there till they sell out, usually around noon. Again, on that first episode, we were talking about how very Texas thing it is, Asian families that own the donut shops, and K Donuts, that's a Korean family. And these are my absolute favorite donuts.
Tight.
So what we got here,
Super exciting.
We got crinkle of the bag.
Yeah. ASMR.
We got a blueberry cake.
Blueberry cake. Daddy's favorite.
Yeah. I've got, this is, you call it an old fashioned or a sour cream donut, maybe. Mm-hmm. They're the crackly ones. I got a chocolate frosted one. These are some of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
And then we got, they stacked them. They stacked them on us, but it'll be all right.
Ooh.
We got a strawberry. They did not have strawberry sprinkle.
Okay.
So just a strawberry and a glaze.
Strawberry sprinkle was probably too popular this morning.
I don't know if I've ever seen a strawberry sprinkle there.
They may not do a sprinkle.
Yeah, they just do a strawberry. They've
That's
got
cool.
other sprinkle options, but not strawberry sprinkle.
Okay.
And then I brought my personal favorite. I cannot go in this shop without buying one of these.
Ooh.
This depends on where you go. Could be a chocolate Long John. Could be a chocolate eclair. It's got a Bavarian cream filling in it. Got to go with the Bavarian cream. It's my favorite. I've also had some pudding filled donuts before. That's those are really good too, but this one is probably my favorite.
Excellent. So just right off the bat, I'm taking a look here. All I see is fat donuts, not definitely not the Shipley's falling down donuts.
we got to come back to Shipley's after we eat some donuts.
Yeah.
I got a Shipley's follow
Update?
up. Yeah.
Okay, good. So yeah, after the first episode, we talked about this is something maybe we should probably take a little time to educate ourselves on. But we did mention there are a lot of Asian-owned donut restaurants throughout Texas that both of us support. K Donuts here in Fort Worth, Sue's Donuts in Weatherford, and so we just want to give them a shout out. Obviously, there's something familial with running a donut shop. Like you said, it's one of those things where you pretty much are there all day long, and you're there early, and you're serving the community, and a lot of people come in. So what do you want to go first? You want to go?
Let's go glaze. It's baseline.
Glaze.
Yeah, I'll let you dig in while I kind of talk about
You
this.
want to cheers it or pull it apart?
Yeah. Oh, Lady in the Trampet, reverse.
That's how we do it. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Here's a little.
So, right off the rip, when we pull it apart, it does kind of spring back a little bit. It's super light and fluffy. It doesn't feel dense or heavy. You can see those like air pockets in there. Well proofed, good amount of yeast, all that good stuff. But we're talking about the Asian donut. There's a really cool documentary called The Donut King. I think it's on Amazon. It's been a little while since I've watched it. But when I was doing all of my donut research, that was one of the things I watched. And it's all about this Cambodian refugee named Ted Ngoy. Sorry if I mispronounced that name. But basically like how he came to America, opened up a donut shop in LA, and then he like brought other Cambodian like immigrants over and train them how to make donuts and open up their own restaurants and become like self-sufficient and like live the American dream through donuts.
I love that. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
Put that on my list to check out.
It's a good
one. The taste. Now, I loved it. There's a little bit of a tang to it. And I was gonna talk about that when we talked about Bavarian cream.
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of some of the mom and pop restaurants, there is like the very specific kind of like tang to some of the Bavarian cream and to some of that. Is that buttermilk or what am I? Yeah,
it is buttermilk. I know I've used like lemon in Bavarian cream before to like curdle the milk if I don't have buttercream.
I was just wondering what I'm tasting there that's tangy as well as sweet. And so I like that there's a balance all around. You get the bread, the tanginess of kind of the sour cream and the sweetness of the frosting and all that. Great donut. Really good donut. There are some donuts that make you feel full like as soon as you eat them. I don't care for those.
No.
Because I like to house several donuts. So these are not that style. These are a very light, springy, airy donut. They're really good for munching on about 3 or 4 of them. Shout out K Donuts. Very good donut. Where you want to go next?
You want to go from glazed into that blueberry?
Yeah, might as well.
All right.
All right. It's a little old-fashioned blueberry. So I wanted to talk about, this is a fun game to play. If you were on a desert island and you could only choose one donut, it doesn't matter if it's like, I'm not talking about like you could only get a shot, but like if you're gonna only eat one donut for the rest of your life,
that one right there, that
there,
Long John,
the Long John boy,
yeah,
you're never tiring of that one.
No, I've been eating those for 34 years that I can remember because I don't remember being in the womb. Sorry, I'm gonna be making that joke this whole time. I'm so sorry.
The primer of that. So if you don't know, Terrence Howard made a very bold claim on another podcast who doesn't need our promotion. But he said he remembers his first memory as being in the womb. So we've been talking about that this morning. Do you remember your first memory? Can you remember like the first memory?
Around the time my family moved to like the Denver area, which I was not quite 3. I have spotty memories.
Yeah.
Like I remember my 3rd birthday a little bit, like bits and pieces. And I remember like the backyard of the house. I don't have like a very specific, this is the first thing I remember.
Right.
But I do remember like bits and pieces around the time I was turning 3.
I'm the same way. And I wonder if most people are that way, of like you just have these like flashes of memories that are feelings or colors or smells or instances of and I also wonder of our memory is affected by pictures and like stories of what other people have said. It'd be like, oh yeah, we're kind of filling in the gaps there a little bit.
I definitely have felt that. It's like remembering a dream, and it's like,
Sure.
wait, did that happen, or do I just remember my mom or dad talking about that?
Right. So you picked the Long John Boy as the desert island donut. I think I would have to go with, I think I'm going to go with the Homer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. I mean, that strawberry is always kind of refreshing, sprinkled. I'm a candy guy. I mean, obviously I brought, again, more freeze-dried Skittles to this morning podcast.
There's
but
never enough.
I think I've had freeze-dried candy every day for about a week and a half now. So
How's your dental coverage?
let's not go there.
I just got dental insurance for the first time in like 10 years. No, that's a lie, but close to.
Shout out.
Yeah.
What's up? Okay. So if we're going to grade these boys, let's taste one more before we move on. Excuse me. That was a big burp because I'm having a Mountain Dew.
Ooh.
I went with the Point Break punch because I figured punch violence, but also Point Break. That's that movie with Val Kilmer and
Keanu Reeves. Yeah.
Piano Keys.
Awesome. I have not had that one.
Yeah.
I'm over here sipping on a room temperature Alani Breezeberry. We had the Alani girls come by my work and drop off a few cases, and I've been hooked ever since.
Shout out Katie Hearn. My wife is also obsessed, and as is my daughter, as is my father-in-law. They all love an Alani beverage.
They're delicious.
Yeah.
I went out and bought a 12-pack, so the Alani girls, you did your job.
Good job,
I hope
Alani
you get a
New.
bonus.
All right. One more donut. Let's taste. Let's
Do the strawberry?
strawberry. Let's go
Cool.
strawberry. All right. Lady in the Trumpet.
Oh.
All right. Cheers.
And so we didn't talk about that blueberry too much. So,
You're right.
so like on the first episode with the Shipleys,
we desert islanded it.
yeah, yes. With the Shipleys, we were talking about how like it tasted kind of artificial. The Dreamboat one, obviously, insider information that is real blueberries in there. With this one, it did not taste super artificial.
Right.
You could see there looked like what were probably like freeze dried, or just dried blueberries in it. So that's cool. It's not like a fake blue color. It's like a light purple, but it's kind of brown on the outside where it was fried. The cake is not like super dense. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that blueberry. All right, what are your thoughts on this strawberry?
My first thoughts are I don't taste too much strawberry. I'm going to specifically taste more of just the frosting, but
Yeah, it's barely there.
yeah, it's like a wisp of strawberry.
I also, again, not to toot my own horn, but I feel like it's hard to top the Dreamboat strawberry frosting because, again, it is real strawberries. There's a little bit of lemon juice and lemon zest in there to make the strawberry pop and taste even fresher.
So there's a tip to all of you donut makers and donut connoisseurs. The taste of real fruit is going to top fake fruit every single time. So if you have the means and the option to include real fruit in your frostings or in your fillings, you heard it here first. We're both experts at this. We do this, basically for a living. So, include real fruits in your donuts, and you're gonna make your customers extremely happy.
Yeah, and that taste, the taste will show through. You can also charge a little bit more because you're using real fruit.
That's right. I mean, there's always good. I don't know what I'm saying. So let's go to grading here. We talked about presentation is one of the grades. We talked about sweetness. We talked about yeast, springback. So out of 6 donut holes, half a dozen donut holes, how are you giving the sweetness of these donuts?
I'm going to give it a 5 because they're not overly sweet. Like my mouth doesn't hurt after eating it.
I agree.
Like it is a perfect amount of sweetness. It is not like loaded down with sugar. It's just enough to be like, oh man, the donut itself is there and the dough is not overly sweet. All of the sugar is coming from the glaze or the frosting and it is not overdone.
I'm right there with you. I was going to go 4.5 because I think that it could be just a touch sweeter, and maybe what we talked about as far as like putting some real fruit in there would enhance the sweetness there. But again, these are budget shops. These donuts are meant to be, cost efficient for everyone, and so I'm not asking them to do that. I'm just saying I think that it could be a little bit sweeter.
Yep.
I'm going to go 4.5 there. And let's go their yeast content springback out of 6.
I'm going to go a 4 on it because it's got some springback. I've had some that are better than this where I've like bitten it, but I was also there at 5 a.m. when they opened the door. So
that's the other thing. Yeah.
You know, it's like 9:30 now. I got them at like 8:45. Yeah. So, you know, they've been sitting there for a few hours. Still delicious, but I'm going a 4 on that. You could still kind of like taste the yeast in it. They're super light and fluffy. Well done.
Yeah, I'm there with you as well. I'm going to go 4 as well. They are really, really good. I'm sitting here looking at the ones that we've kind of demolished. I've picked through these. I've kind of sifted through the blueberry donut, and they're still, still pretty holding up pretty well. Especially this glazed one. We ripped into this one. Still plenty of air pockets. Still plenty of spring back there, even after we've munched on it and kind of left it there. So 4 there. Presentation out of 6. We just had the regular run of the mill pink and blue 90s wave graphic bags.
Yeah, I'm going a 5.
Yeah.
They don't, unless you buy a dozen, they don't really do boxes. They do everything in bags. Again, more cost effective. Like you're paying a penny a bag instead of like 10 cents for a box or whatever it is. So yeah, I mean,
can't fault them for that. We didn't buy a dozen, so they gave us a couple of bags. Very cute. They say fresh donuts and coffee. I always thought it was kind of weird or strange that they didn't go the extra effort to like maybe just stamp a name on it, or
when it's just 2 people doing everything.
I guess you're right.
And also, like, sometimes they have lines out the door, especially like Friday
they don't need
or Sunday.
Any advertisement. They're good to go.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, thank you very much for providing those K Donuts. That was a good treat. If you're in the Fort Worth, Texas area, please stop by and see them. They've got lovely donuts, and they're really, really good. So I enjoyed that very much. Thank you.
I want to do that Shipley's update real quick.
Okay, Shipley's update.
Right, so we had a meeting at one of my jobs, and the boss man, he brought Shipley's donuts, and I was giving him a hard time busting his balls. I was like, do not bring that trash in here. Anything but Shipley's. He's like, no, there's one by my house. They're great. And I was like, no. Well, he brings them in, and I was not there for the meeting. It was early. I'd been in a meeting a few days before, got all the information. I had a Shipley's chocolate frosted donut at about 6 p.m. He'd picked them up at 8 a.m. It sprung back. It was light. It was fluffy. It was delicious. I think we just got a bad batch of Shipley's.
Yeah, we might have just been to the wrong location.
Yeah, he went to the one up in like Watauga area.
Oh yeah, so mine was down kind of Crowley-ish.
Yeah, and that's the one that I've known about for like the last 20 plus years, and that's like we were talking about Knockout Kings. That's the one they took the photo in front of.
Yeah,
so it's like well established. They definitely know what they're doing there. But yeah. Just wanted to update that I had a good Shipley's experience.
Well, excellent. That brings a little bit of restoration of faith to my pick. I really love Shipley's in the past, so maybe we'll have to revisit it in another episode from a very specific location. Yep. We might have to get that location.
Field trip.
So moving right along, we're going to go, lastly, this is the last of the 3 episodes of our introductions. We're going to talk about violence specifically and personally. I'm going to take it away first if you're cool with that.
Go for it.
So, violence in my life. I was a kid that moved around a lot. My dad was in the military. My growing up and my kind of fitting in was always kind of challenged, being the new kid and that sort of thing. So, I only remember a few fights that I got into in school. I was able to like talk my way out of a lot of fighting. But there were some that, just that kind of stick out. One of them was I was fighting a kid at South Hills High School here in Fort Worth.
Shout out.
Yeah. So if you went to South Hills High School from the years of 1998 to 2002, you were part of a very special class. You were the first class that actually got to go to that school. That school was an old Trinity Valley private school. And right when I moved to the area, they opened it up. And so my freshman year was only freshman kids at that school. It was a full 4-year high school, but only freshman year. And then we just kept adding freshmen until my class, the senior graduating class, graduated. And then that was the full high school. But in the middle of that, there was this one kid who just kept on trying me. And I think it was just an after school thing. We just met up, after school and did the thing. And I just remember that was the first time that I had gotten hit and I did that thing where like if you get hit, your natural reaction is kind of to turn away or to turn your back. And so I turned my back, and that was like my first instance where I was like, oh, I don't like getting hit in the face.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, it's not a great time. And so whenever I turn my back, I just remember going like, I either can run away from this or I have to like kind of like figure out how to get into this. So I figured it out. We got into it. He got a couple of good hits in, I got a couple of good hits in. It was one of those things where you shake hands afterwards. It was no big deal. My biggest violence interaction came later on in life. I was already married. I was hanging out with a friend in Arlington. We were recording some music at his house, and we decided to take a break and go to Chili's. And so it was me, him, his wife, my wife, and it was like later on, probably like 9 o'clock in the evening. And so we were off of Cooper in Arlington and just had a few drinks, and we had got sat next to this party, and later come to find out the party was actually a basketball team. And so when we got sat, I kind of like had this feeling of like, oh, this is going to be a problem, because it was just youths, in my opinion. And so it was just like, we had made it through the entire dinner with relatively no problem. We just, kind of kept to ourselves, kept quiet. And so what kind of transpired is I went to the bathroom, and then I kind of came back, and then my wife decided that she needed it. My ex-wife, she needed to go to the bathroom. And so I let her go, and I was sitting in the booth. And when she came back, we were about to leave. So she sat on the edge of the booth for the first time since the entire dinner. And so if you can picture a booth, we're sitting next to each other, and she's kind of on the edge of the outside of the booth. So I'm on the inner part of the booth. She's on there's a wall here. Other people are here. So this gentleman comes up, and he's talking to someone in a booth behind us. She's sitting kind of like this, and his crotch is just right in her face. And he's like over her, and he's like, yeah, ba, 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 and this. And she just had enough of her personal space being invaded. And so she just kind of like pushed him off of her, and he decided to start yelling at her and calling her names. And that's kind of like, I saw red at that point.
Yeah.
So, my male companion friend that was with us, he was in the bathroom. It was just me, the two ladies, and this guy had started doing all that. And so I got up, and I didn't think about that my friend wasn't there. And I didn't think about the fact that he was with like 20 of his friends.
A whole basketball team.
Yeah, basketball team. And so he was like, what are you going to do? And he started poking me in my forehead.
Oh, no. That's...
Yeah. So he had already like put his crotch in my wife's face. He had already like called my wife a bitch and got in her face because she basically was like, can you get out of my space? And then when I got up to confront him, he started poking me in the forehead. So I'd had enough. I grabbed his finger. I'm pretty sure I broke his finger.
Hell yeah. Jake Gyllenhaal style.
Yeah, I grabbed his finger. I remember like twisting it and breaking it or like cracking it. I remember feeling it crack. And then I grabbed him by the throat, and I like picked him up and pushed him up against the wall. And so I had him up against the wall, and I was going to hit him. And right as I had gone to swung, my entire body got lifted up off the ground, and I got thrown backwards.
Oh no.
And all I see is a sea of feet.
Oh.
And so the rest of his team had come to his aid after I had like grabbed his finger and like put him up against the wall, and I was going to hit him, and they put me on the ground, and I had proceeded to get stomped out by the entire basketball team.
Oh, fuck.
But luckily at that time, my friend had come out of the bathroom, and he had always been, a pretty, he's a military guy.
Okay.
And so
Capable.
yeah, very capable, always carrying, always capable. So, when he had come out of the bathroom, we had pretty much, he'd got a few of them off of me, and we'd got a few of them, and we're running them out, and they had run out. But we had to stay because, they wanted me to give, like a police report.
Yeah.
And stuff. And so I didn't give any like specifics, it wasn't one of those things where I like, I'm not a rat, I'm not a snitch, I was just like, I don't know what happened. I got into a fight. It happens. They took pictures of me and all that stuff like that. And so
Now you're in the Arlington PD
Yeah.
database.
Yeah.
They're watching you.
What's crazy though is we had talked about this. I was going down memory lane with my mom and dad about this, and I had talked about this, but I hadn't found it. But I do have a picture still. I'll still have to try and find it. But someone had kicked me so hard that they had kicked my entire eyebrow off of my face.
Oh, fuck.
So like if you saw the picture of me, it was just like a skid mark of a kick, and there was like no eyebrow and chunks of my,
Jeez.
yeah, it was a good time. So since then, I haven't really gotten into anything big like that. A little bit of like shoving matches and grabbing and stuff like that. The last time that, I felt like I needed to like exert myself physically was at a show.
I think I've heard this story.
Yeah. So we were playing at Armory DE, and so it was it was one of those weekends where I think it was like UT-OU weekend or something.
Oh.
So there was like just a plethora of Chads and dude bros and like just the worst of the worst people walking through venues and being drunk. And
You're also already in Dallas, which is just terrible
Right.
in and of itself.
so there's that part of it where you're in Deep Ellum. But then there's also the other part where like the football game's over, so all of the Chads are walking through Deep Ellum trying to figure out what they're doing.
Chad Bro Chill, shout out.
So it was us and Rose Garden Funeral Party
I think that's right.
and Sub-Sahara, and we were playing a show. It was the back patio portion of Armory DE, and it was crazy because Duel was playing around the corner, and so we'd already run into some homies and saw like Jordan Richardson was there, and like just people that we love, and so it felt like kind of like we were just like broing down and having a good time. And then there was just one guy that just showed up when Sub-Sahara was playing, and when they play, there tend to be some kids that like to dance. And that's fine. That we encourage that all the time, but this one particular Chad had found that as like the opportunity to like put his shoulder into like women and younger dudes that were like unsuspecting.
No.
And so it wasn't like he was dancing. He was just straight up shoulder checking people. So yeah, I had to grab him up real quick because he had like,
This is not a Slipknot concert.
yeah, he had like thrown his shoulder into like the lead singer of Duel, and like he had like thrown his shoulder into like a lady, and like so like I grabbed him around his neck and I pulled him to the back. And I tend to do this thing whenever I get heated, I don't yell. I'm a very quiet, like stoic person, and so I grabbed him up and I brought him to the side over here, and I was just like, listen, I don't know who you think you are, but I swear to God, you're giving me a reason to want to beat the shit out of you right now.
Yeah.
So if you want to fight, and if that's what you want to do, like, let's do that over here. Don't put your shoulder into people while like people are having a good time. Like, especially if, they're like unsuspecting. And I had to apologize to like the owner of like the club and stuff. Cause like, it was not, I was like, just got off stage playing, and I'm like bouncing, but like, it's just little stuff like that. I'm a pretty big guy, like as far as like physical stature wise. So people don't like try me. Since then I've taken some classes. I've gone and rolled a little bit. And, my friend that was with me at that Arlington thing, he is actually a jujitsu practitioner, so much so that we opened a gym at one point together. And then I've taken some classes out in Weatherford, out there at Neanderthal Fight Club. So I can handle myself. I don't like advertise it. I'm not looking for it. I definitely will avoid it at all costs. But both my wife and I, there's just something in us that there's like a couple of birthdays ago, again, going to Chili's.
Can't go to Chili's
Yeah.
without a fight.
Yeah, we were going to Chili's for like I think it was like my 37th or 38th birthday. So it was like 3 or 4 years ago. We were simply just walking across Parkway, driving portion, but the pedestrians have the right of way. So we're walking, just trying to get into the restaurant, and somebody was driving, and they like almost like, they do that thing where they like stop abruptly and they hit the horn, and they're like, and then Allie had like said something to them, and they had called her a bitch. So like we're out there about to fight right before we go to Chili's, right before
Just
my
want
birthday.
my baby backs.
So violence has always kind of like been in and around my life, as far as like fighting and stuff like that. Not like anything crazy. I didn't grow up in like I didn't go to Taekwondo or anything like that. I just played sports and was like kind of a punk and had to like figure out how to fight on my own just because like people, typical stuff. It wasn't anything where it was like I went and served and, or I've been training or anything like that. It was just like regular boy stuff, toxic masculinity usually.
Absolutely.
I will say there's been a couple of times where I've seen some pretty gnarly fights that I haven't been a part of. One in particular I can remember, speaking of, high school stuff. I remember there's one time that these kids were fighting and it was off campus and we went to a park and they were fighting next to soccer goals. And this dude had like pieced up this guy really good and he had grabbed his head and he rammed it into the metal soccer goal.
Oh.
Yeah. That was one really super duper like gnarly thing that I'd seen one time, like been present for fight wise.
I feel like, in the heat of the moment in street fights specifically, when you don't know what the next move is going to be, certain things are not off limits. And that's one of those things where it's like, hey, this person could have a knife, could have a gun.
Yeah.
I would like to go home today.
Yeah.
And I've definitely done some things where I've looked back and I'm like, oh, fuck. If the cops showed up, I would be in a lot of trouble. But I'm glad that the cops didn't show up and that nobody died.
Yeah, for sure. I've never, I've lucked out in that way as well. I've seen people, with guns. I've never seen anybody had to specifically use one. I've seen people with knives. I've never seen anybody, had to use one. Kind of ranges, shotguns before, not scared of guns, owned guns before, don't, particularly like have an opinion, one way or the other when it comes to that sort of thing.
2A, hell yeah, brother. This is Texas, my God-given rights. I was born with a gun in my right hand and my dick in my left.
Yeah, well, it is what it is.
No. I feel the same way about guns. I grew up shooting guns.
Yeah.
My grandpa took me to the range quite a bit. My parents have guns. Like, I am all about learning about how to use a weapon, how to own it responsibly, use it responsibly, because there are too many idiots out there who don't. I'm all about teaching your kids how to handle a weapon, because there's a good chance that they're going to encounter one in the wild one day, and I would much rather them know how to handle themselves than the idiot that they're with. But yeah, I am, not a 2A hell yeah brother, but I am, if you want to own a gun and protect yourself, it is your right. Go for it.
I got into watching violence, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, pretty hard, pretty like heavily. Watching violence growing up, my only exposure was anytime Mike Tyson was fighting, we were watching that. So
the GOAT.
I got into wrestling for like a summer when NWO was happening.
I tried to really bad. I mean, because again, it was like late 80s, early 90s, WWF, WCW, later 90s ECW. My parents were like, no wrestling. Yeah. But I would go visit my grandparents who lived 3 states away. No rules during the summer. So I watched a lot of WWF when I was with them.
SummerSlam.
Yeah. That was like my only exposure, was like watching Monday Night Raw at my grandparents' house. So I would say probably about 6 or 7 years ago, I started watching UFC pretty regularly. I think that kind of came into around the same time, and maybe even longer than that, but around the same time that we started the gym, I started being interested in jiu-jitsu and listening to different podcasts and hearing different people that, trained multi-disciplines and got really interested in, there are different fighting styles. I always thought it was interesting going back and looking at the old UFCs, and the original intent would be like, what happens if you put a karate guy with a boxing guy? And that kind of happens now, but it's morphed now that everybody is more mixed martial arts oriented. I find it one of those things where a lot of people on the outside looking in, you see just a bunch of like brutes bashing each other and that sort of thing. But there is some skills, some strategy. There is some mind games. There is some drama. There is a lot of showmanship. There's a lot of kind of like
that WWE flair, but it's more real, more risk involved. And so I love it. I watch it every chance I get. I'm a huge boxing fan as well. I've gotten more into boxing. I watch just about everything I can. So let's hear from Parker. What let's hear your fight stories. What do you got?
So I mean, for those who are listening to this who don't know me, I've always been a bigger guy. I'm like 6'3", 240 pounds. I haven't been under 6 foot or under 200 pounds since I was like 13 years old. So that kind of worked in my favor in high school, as people didn't really fuck with me too much. But like my first fist fight was in grade school. Like somebody called somebody a name, kid came up, like started choking me. I started laughing at him. My go-to is always to laugh at people when they want to inflict violence on me. I'm like, wait, really? And then I remember like punching him in the face repeatedly until he stopped choking me. And like both of us went our separate ways and nothing came up. Like teachers weren't around. Like I still talk to that dude to this day. And so that, but I also remember it was weird because it was the first time I'd ever thrown a punch. Didn't know what I was doing. And it felt like I was in slow motion. That's the thing I remember the most about it, is like, did that even connect? Like it felt like I didn't throw it with any force behind it, and it really caught me off guard. And that's how it's always kind of been whenever I've thrown a punch at somebody, is it feels like it was happening in slow motion. It's a weird thing. It's like, oh hey, this fight was like 30 seconds long, but it felt like it lasted 2 hours. So I can't imagine what like professional fighters are going through when they're in there. Like it has to feel like a lifetime. So yeah, I mean that was, a couple things like that with like friends growing up when we were like preteens and stuff, like scrapping. The first time I realized I actually really hurt somebody who was in high school, I had a friend, like one of my best friends, he was like fucking with me. I was like, hey, I'm having a bad day, like leave me alone. He just kept fucking with me, and I turned around and hauled off and I swung on him. I connected with his orbital and I felt it pop. It was in the, like we were walking to the lunch line, like he hit a table, hit the ground. Everybody circled up like, oh, there's a fight. And I was like, no, he's my friend. Like, I told him not to fuck with me, and he fucked with me one more time. And I felt so bad. He went to the nurse, had to go home, had a black eye for a few days. Like, I felt absolutely terrible. We kind of stopped talking after that. And so, like, that was like the first time I was like, oh, fuck, like, not cool.
Yeah.
And then, as far as like my first time really seeing actual violence, we talked about music last time, coming up in like the punk and hardcore scene. I was at a show at Red Blood Club in 2004, and it was one of my first times. Like I'd seen like hardcore dancing and, that kind of stuff at like local shows with a bunch of other teenagers. I'd never seen grown ass men, fucking dancing. And so I'm at Red Blood Club, I'm like 16 years old, and I see these dudes just like fucking crowd killing, and I was standing back, I was like, what the fuck is happening? But ended up like this fight happens, I watch a dude basically like pluck another dude's eyeball out of his head, like blood everywhere, like EMTs show up. It was fucking gnarly. But that was like my first time of like, oh shit is fucking real. And that kind of like colored the rest of my time in hardcore. So my band Human Error, we were kind of known for being violent. We were all bigger dudes. We played mean fucking music. We had at least between 6 and 10 broken noses during our sets over the course of a couple years. We had one show where a kid was moshing and he cut his hand open on the vent at 1919. And he proceeded to continue moshing, and he was just throwing blood on the audience. And so like not necessarily violence, but just gory. So like that happened. We got a gun pulled on us one time in the parking lot of 1919. One of the dudes in the band, his dad was like an MMA instructor. And like, again, shit happens. People get popped. But there was like some drama that happened with his dad because he was at a show, and this drunk kid came up. One of our other friends was dancing. The kid kept like kind of push moshing. He would shove him away. The kid came up, swung at him. My friend broke his nose. Then the kid started like getting loud with my friend's dad. And the dad was like, hey man, like you just need to get out of here. Like you don't know what you're getting into. Like please just leave. And then this has been written about actually in a zine. And
the lore.
Yeah, there's a zine about it, but one of the dudes who was volunteering there, he very sarcastic guy. He was also there when we got a gun pulled on us, and he got his jaw broken because he was sarcastic and got pistol whipped. And that sucks, like real shitty thing. But anyways, he like tries to diffuse things with comedy and sarcasm. And when you've got a dude who is an MMA instructor who is more than likely on some steroids, probably on some other stuff too, who is being chill and telling this kid to leave, and you come up being sarcastic, and this dude does not understand sarcasm.
Right.
He'll put you up against a wall. So we got banned from 1919 for a little bit because of that. Other instances, I've been in a fight in almost every bar on Magnolia just because it's a bar. People act a certain way. The chat room specifically, like if you're in Fort Worth, you know.
If you know, you know.
But yeah, like one time when shortly after Heather and I had gotten together, it was like our first New Year's together. There was a dude who came with our group of friends. None of us knew him except for one guy. And he came with us. He was very sloppy drunk. And we're leaving and he grabs my now wife's arm and is like, where are you going? And she's like, we're all going back to the house. And he's like, no, you're staying here with me. And I was like, no, she's coming. And he grabbed me and I was like, and I just bounced his head off of a table, flipped the table over on him, and just started stomping him. And the bartenders there were all friends of mine, so they all come up and grab him, throw him out. His friend who invited him started beating the shit out of him outside and was like, I invited you, you made a fool of me. Like, so like that kind of shit would happen pretty regularly where it's like, oh, hey, we know the bartender's here. Like,
right.
Whatever. This is just another instance of this. I got knocked out one time. I've only been knocked out one time ever, and it was because I was trying to break up a fight between two of my friends over pit beef.
Nice.
And
that's why you became vegan.
I was vegan at the time. I was also very drunk, and I had one of my friends, he was moshing a little bit too hard, pissed off another friend who did not know him. That guy started shoving him, and I was like, got in between them. Hey, guys, hey. My friend who was moshing too hard swung on the other dude, missed, connected perfectly with me.
Nice.
I went down, and I lost about 4 seconds and came back. It was also like I was starting back at college the next day. I was like in my early 20s, had taken some time off, and went to my first day back at college with 2 black guys. That was cool.
Cool times.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just shit like that. Like the worst bar fight I ever got into was actually at Finn McCool's. I was managing a restaurant and I had told everybody like, hey, if you get out before midnight, I'll buy everybody a shot. They got out before midnight. They called me. I met them up there. You know, it's like 5 people. Buy them around. I hang out and I'm not drunk. I didn't even have a shot. I had a beer. And I hung out, played pool with them, like shot the shit. It's 2 a.m. closing time. They made the last call. Everybody goes out to smoke a cigarette before last call. As we're walking out, this guy who's been there all night comes up behind one of my friends and he goes, calls the guy by his name and he goes, do you know who the fuck I am? And he looks at him and goes, huh? And then guy drops a hard R.
Oh.
Swings on my friend. And that's when it's just like, oh, it's on. Yeah. Like, you don't do that shit. That's not okay. And we proceeded to just there were like 4 of us that just beat the fuck out of this dude. He was so drunk, he didn't know what was happening. By the time, like, it was me and this other dude who like really just worked him over. There were 2 other people there who broke his glasses, slapped him a couple times, like did that. But by the time, like, he came back 3 different times. By the time he was done, there was blood coming out of his nose, his eyes. He could barely walk. His friend got him in the car, and he was hanging out the car still trying to fight us. That's how fucked up this dude was. Like, he did not realize, like, hey, it's time to stop. But yeah, he tried to gouge one of the other guy's eyes out.
Jeez.
He popped me in the back of the head. It was not a good time. That was one of the more brutal ones, just because like he just kept coming, and that sucked. And I had been training jiu-jitsu prior to this, and that actually like kind of came in handy. But then what sucked was like I would have him like, oh hey, got him down. We can just like wait here, let him tire himself out, and then somebody'd run up and kick him in the face. I'm like, hey. Like, no, don't, you can't kick him in the face if I'm holding him down. Like, that is, like, he's already done for. So yeah, there's that. I'm sure there's other fights that have happened, but most of them were centered either around bars or punk and hardcore music. Which, you know, I don't drink anymore, so that's cool. Hopefully, I haven't been in a fight in years.
Sure.
Unless I've paid for classes to do it. But yeah, I've trained jiu-jitsu off and on whenever I can afford classes. I really love it. One of my good friends is a black belt in jiu-jitsu and judo. He's got mats at his house, so
nice.
If I've got time, I like to go over there and let him just kick my ass.
Yeah.
He's really into heel hooks. He's a very sneaky guy. I've taken a Muay Thai class and realized I really don't like striking. Like, I hate getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's why I like jiu-jitsu, is because I've been punched in the face and it sucks, and I don't want to spar and get punched and kicked in the face repeatedly.
Big time. Well, you're a violent person.
I don't want to be.
Yeah. You could have used a bouncer in your life.
I've been told I should have been a bouncer.
A roadhouse bouncer.
Oh, great segue.
So we both recently watched Roadhouse, the remake, and we thought it would be fitting, since we talk violence, to kind of talk about the movie, give our reviews, give our notes. No real reference to the original. Just, you know, it is what it is as a standalone. If you're curious about it, you can kind of listen to what we have to say about it and make your decision on whether or not you wanted to watch it. So.
I've watched it twice. I've talked to other people who've watched it multiple times. It is a fun movie. I do want to say that. It's like, substance-wise, there's not a lot there. But if you're looking for a enjoyable, funny 2 hours with some fights, go for it.
For sure. So we both kind of took some notes. I'm going to bounce my first note off of you and just see where we kind of land on it. So the first thing I wrote down was Post Malone ? CGI ?
I also wrote down Post Malone looks like a PS3 fighting game.
Okay.
I want to say that he looks good. Like, I know he like lost a bunch of weight, but he does not look like he could go multiple rounds. Like, there's not enough gas in that tank for him to go more than like 2 minutes.
I see the meme of him being like, all right, okay, man. Okay. Like that meme of him being like just that stoned and being like, there's no way his body can move like that.
His lungs couldn't handle
and like
that.
The funny dances he does on stage and stuff like that. Like, he is just not as fluid as that CGI.
And that's why they had the CGI. Like, definitely needed that help.
Yeah, so it was very cool to see. I was not expecting Post Malone right off rip. Texas tie-in, Texas shout out. Very cool to see him. But again, I can't. There was no way I could picture him actually fighting.
Also, tying it back to music, Post Malone grew up in DFW and he played in like metalcore bands. I'm pretty sure when he was like a teenager, he was at a Human Error show. Back before he was very famous, but he was in that like circle, that scene. So yeah, he's probably seen some violence.
Yeah, I'm sure he has. So I didn't look at like the IMDb like trivia facts and stuff until after I watched the whole movie. I didn't want to kind of like be swayed, but I did see after the fact that it said that all of the fight scenes had CGI incorporated. Yep. And so I felt disappointed that they kind of did Post Malone off rip, just because like I think if they had done like a different couple of fighters off rip and got us used to the CGI,
it
was just so abrupt going like oh, it's Post Malone. Oh, it looks like a video game.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, the second thought I had was the car that Jake Gyllenhaal was driving. He was listening to a fight on the radio.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that.
So number one, there's never been a UFC fight
Yeah.
broadcasted on the radio. So, but number two, it's like, even if it was, like, what station is going to be on an FM or AM bandwidth?
Hey, maybe that really nice car he was driving had Bluetooth and he had a YouTube video going.
Yeah, maybe so. But I just thought, like, old ass cars don't get satellite radio or like Bluetooth or anything like that. And I was just like, and he's got him on a rear naked choke. And I'm like, this is so not right. Like, first of all, the only way you're going to watch a UFC fight is like probably through like ESPN or like the apps or whatever. But anyways, I thought that was kind of like weird. I thought it was very interesting, all of the literature references that they had made throughout all of the movie.
Yeah.
And just like, I didn't know if that was like somebody that the person who had written the movie was like super into like that area and like the fact that Hemingway had spent some time there. But I just thought that there was like a lot of literature references, the bookstore, and that sort of thing. And so I thought that was like, I didn't know if like we were giving like the heavy-handed, like, it's not just the brawny movie, it's also a brainy movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely kind of got that vibe too. And it's also like, hey, you can be hit in the head repeatedly and still be able to read.
Yeah. So it's like, between the literature references and the fancy names of everything, like the dog's name was Chauncey.
Yeah.
And then like his name is like Dalton.
Well, that's from the original.
Right. No,
yeah.
I know. But the other bouncers' names before, they were like, the previous bouncer's name was like Alfred and Benedict. And it was just like all of the like fancy names for everything. I thought that was like, between the literature references and the fancy names, it was like very overtly like you said, like, yes, you can be a big, strong UFC fighter, but also love to read, which is fine. Like, yeah, that's right. We can do anything. What you got there note wise?
I took a lot of notes. Some of them make sense. Some of them don't. I mean, the first thing when Jake Gyllenhaal enters and he like takes his shirt off, dude is fucking ripped.
Yes.
Like, he's got to be like, what, 1% to 2% body fat. I know I sent you a video about his like workout, his training, all that stuff.
Yeah.
There is no way that you could walk around at that body fat percentage regularly. Like, if you're training for a fight and you're cutting and you cut down, get diced up like that, fuck yeah, but you're going to immediately carb up before you go into a fight.
Yeah.
There's no way that he would be able to do the things he does if he was just walking around like that.
You think he was severely dehydrated in most of those shots where he looks super cut up like that?
I'm sure there were other things at play to make him dry out like that. I mean, it's a movie.
Yeah.
You know, he probably has a great team of doctors checking his blood work and, you know, helping him maintain that. And also like a dietitian and all that. But yeah, he looked great, but there's no way that you could sustain that physique. So yeah, I've got that. My next note was, are there really bars like this where people are constantly getting into brawls so much that they need a badass bouncer and a cage around the stage to protect the band?
Yeah. So the other movie that comes to mind is Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
Where you have the cage. That's crazy.
I think I've only seen that in real life one time where there's like a chain link fence around the stage.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell if it was more for effect. The Rail Club here in Fort Worth, I think when they first opened, when I first went there, I think they may have had like a fence, like a chain link fence in front of the stage.
Interesting. That checks.
Yeah. I mean,
tracks.
Like, I feel like I saw I Hate God there, like, you know, early, like late mid 2000s or early 2010s, and I feel like there was like a chain link fence up because I remember thinking, oh, this is like Roadhouse. But yeah, no, that was the other thing, is like, it's all like tourists basically. It's not people who live there, and they're all in like their like Hawaiian shirts getting into fist fights, like, hey, you drunk asshole, get down, and then they start swinging on each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've never. Is this
don't-
Chili's?
Yeah, no, it is. Is this Chili's? Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't think I've ever seen I also don't think like if you have a reputation of like having a fight at your bar every night, I doubt the cops in the city would just let you just stay open all of the time. I'm guessing it's one of those things where it's maybe more of a reference to like a biker bar that's maybe not like so legally opened all of the time, and you probably do need some people.
Did you see the
there.
architecture on that building?
I mean,
that was a beautiful building, right on the beach. Yeah.
So next thing I had was they had mentioned the six-toed cat.
Yeah.
I have one of those. So I was like, oh, hey, Jim, they're talking about you. I have a funny story. So throughout the entire movie, you see Jake Gyllenhaal's character Dalton. He is fighting with this inner demon that kind of comes to him as he's sleeping. He has these memories of this awful, tragic event that happened whenever he was in the UFC. And so he is sleep fighting a lot. You see him kind of like sleep fighting a lot. And I don't know if you're a big Parks and Rec guy, but there's this one episode where they all volunteer to do like this telethon, but she signs them up for like the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. slot. And so Ron, the main character, Ron Swanson, he like brings his sleep mask and he's going to get some sleep in, and he's like, boom, 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 boom. He's like sleep fighting. And it's like best sleep of my life or whatever. But what's funny is my therapist at one time told me that I needed some melatonin to help me sleep. And so apparently whenever I take melatonin, it makes me very violent. So Allie like had tried to like talk to me or wake me up or something like that, and I had like turned around and I was just like, whoa. So sleep fighting is kind of thought that was kind of interesting that you would fight in your sleep. Love equals extreme irritation ? Is that what we were to learn from this Pearl analogy?
Yeah, right. That's kind of what I got from it too. I was like, there were a lot of like, I don't know where they were going. I looked up the director. I did not look up the writer on this to see what else he did. I'm gonna actually do that while we talk, because
so I just thought that was an interesting thing. They were talking about pearls there when I said that, but I just thought that like a funny movie like Wedding Crashers had such a poignant like love is finding one's true counterpoint in another, and then you go to Roadhouse and they're like, it's beautiful, but it's extremely irritating.
It's like getting sand in your swim trunks.
The next note after, as you're looking that up, I have Connor equals terrible / cocaine.
So my note is, where is my Connor? Connor's performance is so coked out and unhinged. Also, the amount of steroids that he had to have been on between the leg break and getting beefy for this, like the amount of cocaine, steroids, kind of reminds me of that story I told earlier about the dad at 1919.
Correct.
Very similar vibe to Conor McGregor in this movie.
So if you're unfamiliar with UFC or Conor McGregor at all, and you just came into this movie just because you like Jake Gyllenhaal, or you thought that you were going to see some remake of this Patrick Swayze movie from the 80s, Conor McGregor is one of the most recognizable and infamous fighters when it comes to MMA and UFC. He is bigger than the UFC to the point where he actually got to fight Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match just because he deemed it so. He's kind of a crazier character when it comes to the UFC, but yes, he did break his leg, and he has been kind of, rehabbing that and making his way back to the UFC. He actually hasn't fought in like, I think 2.5, 3 years. And so all of this time, there's been the speculation on like, how is he rehabbing? Is he getting tested by USADA? Is all of these things happening? And really what's going on is he's just doing a lot of cocaine and a lot of steroids. And it's very evident. Yeah, it's very evident by his Instagram posts. He's spending a lot of time on a yacht. He's been, hanging out with Jake Gyllenhaal filming this movie. And so all the past year, there's been speculation. When is he going to come back? Is USADA going to actually make him wait the 6 months to test? 2 clean tests, all of these things. We've actually been waiting on this answer for about a year, and we are about 6 weeks out from the actual fight between him and Michael Chandler. So there's a lot of unanswered questions. Is he going to fight? Is he not going to fight? But if you check out this movie, you will see someone that's in the throes of just like constant partying, constant having anything you want in life, just being a millionaire and just being
so you're
ripped
saying he
and-
wasn't acting in this?
No. This was real life. I don't know.
I
doubt he was
actually
acting.
I have more notes about Connor.
Please.
His entrance, I mean, he is nude. Like he's just
Correct.
walking around causing chaos naked. So like that's, the first like unhinged thing we see.
He bookmarks that, by the way. I don't know if you caught that at the end of credits.
Maybe.
So if you didn't,
Okay.
his entrance, he's nude. His exit, he's nude.
That's right. No, you're right.
'Cause
You're
he
right. I
exits the hospital with his hospital gown. And
Holy
you can see his
shit.
ass.
I wrote down, it's been a while since I've been clubbing, while he walks out with a golf club in hand, walking into the roadhouse. And his one-liners just keep coming. Like he was just just coked out one-liners nonstop, and I love it.
I agree. It was a good time. If you are a UFC fan, I wrote down this next note. He specifically did a couple of one-liners that were like little winks to the MMA/UFC community. One of them is, I can't let you get close. That is a tie-in from whenever Chael Sonnen was on The Ultimate Fighter. He was a coach, and his counterpart was a Brazilian guy that hated him. And they got into a little skirmish pre-show, and Chael just said, "I can't let you get close." And so that line was a little wink to that. Whenever Connor introduces him as the most notorious UFC fighter, that's Connor's nickname.
Yeah.
So that was a little wink to himself. But also, the first time I put the strut ×2 when we see him walk the first time.
Yeah.
He's constantly doing his celebratory walk. That is just like Connor MMA celebration 101 right there. What else you got?
Let's see. I have bar fight in quotes and then start swinging at strangers. This is like, I think it's when Conor McGregor makes his entrance to the Roadhouse.
Yeah.
And he's like causing a scene, and just a random dude just goes, bar fight. And then they just start, everybody in the bar just starts beating the shit out of each other.
It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah. I've got that. Getting headbutt by a roided out McGregor would cause instant brain damage or death.
Correct.
Look at that fucker's neck and forehead. Like, if he headbutted you, you would just burst into like a fine mist.
Correct.
Some of the like one-liners, edginess, like Jake Gyllenhaal, like, when someone pushes me too far, I know what happens next. It's like,
all right, Hulkster. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Yeah, exactly. There's that. There was something else that I wrote specifically about that. Oh yeah, the knife scene kind of earlier on before McGregor comes in breaks the first rule of the OG Roadhouse. You take everything outside.
Yeah.
And they were fighting in the Roadhouse. They were allowing fights to happen in the Roadhouse. They were handling it in the Roadhouse. That goes against everything the first movie stood for.
Correct.
Listen to more Mall Walker. You'll hear it there too. I've got one that says Sublime with Rome cover band. Yeah, I've got a couple different.
So
things like
I'll
that.
go over my last few while you're looking at yours. I put boat jump equals ridiculous.
Oh, how did that dude survive? It was like what? I've got a note about him too.
They just straight up, he crashed his boat into another boat, so that way the momentum of him crashing would send him flying to the other boat, so he could catch himself and then
start fighting
land
there.
on that boat and start fighting there.
Yeah.
I also put Dalton on the spectrum question.
Aren't we all though?
I just felt like the zero feeling for everything and like just
is it
smiling and just
is it on the spectrum, or is it you've been hit in the head one too many times, punch drunk?
And then I put Brant died for being annoying.
That guy, I have a couple notes about him. This is just, I'm not going to get into all of them, but I call him Great Value Bradley Cooper meets Chris Evans.
Yes.
And also, who the fuck gets shaved with a straight razor on a sailboat?
That was
What
so
the
ridiculous.
Fuck?
Yeah. I also put, so this was this, you looked up the written by.
Okay, so the two writers don't really have any credits.
Okay.
One of them was a writer for the movie Nice Guys with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling, which that movie I loved.
Great
I saw it in
movie.
the theater, super entertaining. But they credit the guy who wrote the original Roadhouse for characters, and then these other two guys, and between the two of them, I think they've got like 4 movies they've written.
So I definitely put written by a man, and I didn't look that up.
Definitely written by 2 dudes.
There's zero closure at the end. Like,
well, yeah, so they can do Roadhouse too.
No,
Everything's a franchise now.
I'm just saying, like, not like, hey, you only gave me 2 payments. I need the rest of my money. Just like zero closure. Just like we're in love, right? But I'm never going to talk to you again.
We're going to get a Roadhouse cinematic universe where all other bouncers go and, fight crime in their own roadhouses.
It was a great movie. I enjoyed it. It was corny. I thought 2 things at the end. One, a very cool Donnie Darko tie-in. The fact that Jake Gyllenhaal and Patrick Swayze were in Donnie Darko together. And the fact that Jake Gyllenhaal
I'm not afraid
played Patrick Swayze's character.
Yeah.
So that was cool in my mind. I was like, oh yeah, they did do a movie together. But also UFC 285. I actually was watching that UFC live while they were filming the UFC scenes for this movie. And so that whole week, I'm a big UFC homer. So I watched the weigh-ins, I watched the ceremonial press conferences, I watched all of that. All that week, you would see Jake Gyllenhaal just kind of like do the same things that the fighters do. So like you'd have the weigh-ins, and then you'd have Jake Gyllenhaal come out and weigh in, and they'd be like, so there's Jake Gyllenhaal, he's doing a film for a movie that's coming out. And so I've been waiting for this movie to come out for so long because I saw it, pre-production wise, whenever he was actually doing all that stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool. That UFC 285 full circle moment has come back around. Now you could go back and see all of that happening. So let's see what else you got there, Roadhouse wise.
Our own little octagon. Who taught you shapes? That one was good. How many times has Dalton been hit by a vehicle in this movie?
Correct.
I will say that final fight between Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor was the best one of the movie, which it kind of has to be because it is like what's tying it up. Yeah. But I feel like the CGI was used the most tastefully in that fight. You could tell that like they were actually fighting. Mm-hmm. And you saw some like actual like things that you would see in a UFC fight, or in a bar fight. And that it seemed like the CGI was more to help with the camera angles and make it flow instead of making it look like they know how to hit each other.
Sure.
My last note is fucking Enter Sandman with Rome. And then I've got like notes about the director, but that was my last note about the actual movie.
Yeah, so check it out. Roadhouse, streaming now on Amazon.
It's an Amazon original.
Yeah, so if you've got Amazon Prime and Amazon Video and all that stuff like that, you can check it out. It's a good popcorn movie, if you got a little older kids, it's probably fun to watch with them.
Yeah, there's like no nudity. There's violence,
Connor's
obviously. Oh, well, yeah, but whatever. I mean, that thing's like a brick wall. But yeah, no, it's fun. I definitely again, I've watched it twice. I'll probably watch it again. I'm also a big fan of the original Roadhouse.
Sure.
But the director, Doug Liman, he is actually pretty well-established director.
Interesting.
One of his kind of breakthrough movie was the movie Swingers.
Okay.
He did Go.
Okay.
Born Identity.
Great movies.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Jumper, Edge of Tomorrow, and American Made.
Interesting.
And he's done some more, but those were the ones that really stood out to me. And those, Roadhouse seems like a big departure from a lot of those.
Yeah. Roadhouse felt like it should have been done by Michael Bay, one of those big
yeah, exactly. Like when I looked up the movies that Doug Liman had made, I was like, oh wait, I know all of these movies. And Edge of Tomorrow is a big action sci-fi blockbuster, but yeah, it definitely did not feel like the guy who did Swingers and Go directed this movie.
Well, that's all we have for the Roadhouse review. We enjoyed it. We give our stamp of approval. It has violence in it. Was there any breakfast food?
Oh shit!
I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
we should start looking out for that in the movies. I don't recall.
I don't remember.
I think they just drank a lot of beer.
I mean, actually, no. She brought him a whole spread of breakfast food on the houseboat. She brought him breakfast tacos. The bartender, she came in with a bag of food. He didn't eat any of it because you can't eat because you're 1% body fat.
You're right.
So yeah,
there was breakfast
tacos specifically, which is, it was set in Florida, but that's a very Texas thing.
That is. So our stamp of approval, Breakfast Foods and Violence on that Roadhouse. So a couple of things before we wrap up. I doubt it's going to take all of the time that I have in the notes here, but just quickly, last night there was a humongous boxing fight, boxing match. Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk fought last night. I deemed it important enough to mention because this is the first time in, I believe, 15 years that there is an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world when it comes to boxing. So there is a bunch of different, there's the World Boxing Organization, there's a World Boxing Championship, there's like 5 or 6 different organizations that hold belts when it comes to divisions. Very rarely in history of boxing has anyone been an undisputed heavyweight champion. It's the premier division in boxing. And so, for a very long time, Tyson Fury has been, on top when it comes to the boxing world. He is an unconventional looking guy. He's kind of like a chubbier looking guy, but he's one of those guys that has a motivational story. He was addicted to drugs. He's come back from that, obviously. He's fought just about anybody you can think of. And the last time there was an undisputed heavyweight champion, it was Lennox Lewis. And so it's been that long since someone has been an undisputed heavyweight champion. And last night, Alexander Usyk upset Tyson Fury, and he is now the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Tyson Fury lost. He doesn't have any more belts. So he is not on top of the world anymore. So this is
Back
a changing
drugs.
of.
Sorry, that was.
Damn.
I hope not. That was.
I thought it's. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that there is a changing of the guard when it comes to the heavyweight division of the boxing world. So last week, Derek Lewis fought, headlined the card in St. Louis, Missouri. And I thought it was hilarious because at the end of his fight, if you're not familiar with Derek Lewis, he is a super heavyweight UFC fighter from Houston, Texas. He has the words "Knockout King" tattooed across his chest. So if that gives you any indicator of how he fights, he at one point said, "Jiu-jitsu is not real. All you have to do is stand up." He does not train wrestling, jiu-jitsu very much. That's not his forte. His forte is swang and bang. So, however, I think that he's changed his tune on jiu-jitsu not being real. He has worked a lot on his ground game the past year or so, and that showed. He fought Nascimento last week. He knocked him out in the 3rd round, and so previously, one of his funniest and more memorable moments was he had taken his shorts off, and Joe Rogan comes to interview him, and the first things that he asked him was, "Why'd you take your shorts off?" And he said, "My balls was hot."
He's from Houston. It happens.
He's from Houston.
It is sweaty down there. Balls do be getting hot.
So if you're unfamiliar with Derek Lewis, you could probably just YouTube popular Derek Lewis quotes, and "my balls was hot" will be right up there at the top. Another thing Derek Lewis is famous for is just being ridiculous. And so this celebration that he did this past week was just kind of over the top. The first thing he did, first of all, was he repeated taking off his shorts. And
the new thing.
He took off his shorts, and then he waved his shorts over the guy he just knocked out like he needed air.
No.
And then after he did that, he laid straight down on his back, and the camera was on him, and they had to zoom in on him real quick because he reached down into his underwear, pulled out his cup, and he did that. So they went tighter on him, so you didn't see that. But he pulled out his cup. He stood up, and he purposefully looked around the octagon to find the media table, and then threw his cup at the media table.
Oh.
One of the media members picked it up and then put it in front of somebody else. I was like, "Why'd you touch it?"
Yeah.
But then after that, he thought he was so pleased with himself that he was kind of trotting around in his underwear, and he just went ahead and mooned the crowd as well. And so
Houston really coming through on this guy.
St. Louis got the trifecta. They got no shorts, they got the cup, and they also got the moon.
St. Louis, especially East St. Louis, is like the Houston of the Midwest. So,
So Derek Lewis now holds the record for gate on fight night. He has the most money brought in on any fight night ever. He's a terrific fighter. We're proud of him from Texas boy, holding it down, swinging and banging. We're proud to see him, and that celebration was just something that I think that we needed to talk about.
And I hope his balls have cooled down.
Yeah, I'm sure his balls are fine now. I was going to talk about Tyson versus Paul, but that's coming up, so we've got time to talk about that. Just quickly, we were going to go into it for just a couple of minutes, but we're kind of running out of time here. I'll just ask you one question. What do you think is the point of this fight? Because I know people have all these predictions about like who's going to win, what's going to happen. I just want to know what do you think is the point of this fight?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's obviously money and clout, but
now you said, I thought money too, but neither of them need money.
I think it's clout. I think it is like, I think one, Mike Tyson proving himself, like he's a scary motherfucker. And he's 57, 58 when the fight happens, maybe. And I think it's him proving like, hey, I can still turn it on. I can still be this scary motherfucker who can put people to sleep. And I think Jake Paul is like, I'm going to prove myself as a legitimate boxer. Like, no one takes me seriously. I'm coming in for this. I'm taking it serious.
So I thought they did those things already. That's why I'm not being a dick. I'm just I'm just devil's advocating you. Mike Tyson proved himself whenever he went out against Roy Jones Jr. not that long ago that he still has it. And that was against a legit boxer.
But they were both a little bit older, right?
Yeah, I mean,
and they also did not allow any punches to the head during that fight. They're going to be able to go full on in this.
And then also this Paul kid's fought boxers before, right?
Yeah, I mean, and he is a legitimate boxer. Like, if he did not have like all of his YouTube shit behind him, if he was just a boxer, like I think he'd be taken more seriously. And I think he's taken seriously enough, but I think that, if you didn't have all of his YouTube antics and all of that.
So we're going back to ego.
Yeah.
I think money is also on the table because something that we haven't mentioned yet is that this fight will be on Netflix.
Oh, shit. I forgot about that.
This will be Netflix's first live sports event. So this may be back to playing into the ego when it comes to money. This may be such a big check that Mike Tyson can't say no.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking about that. I was like, wait, just playing devil's advocate off of that. What does the common person think the point is of this fight? Because I think you're right there. I think it is a little bit of the ego as far as like, yes, Mike Tyson did prove that he still has it against Roy Jones Jr., but like that has been some time. Does he still have it? And can he really put the hurting on this YouTube kid? So looking forward to it. We had a great episode today. Thank you so much for bringing the donuts from K Donuts. We both have things to do today. I've got to go to work. You got to go to work?
No, I'm off today.
Oh, you off today?
I got band practice later.
Oh, snap. Okay. All right. Good for you. I've got to go to work, but thank you so much, Parker. I appreciate everything. The donuts, the chat, the Roadhouse notes. I'm looking forward to next week, and I hope you have a good one.
Yeah, me too. See you next week.
Breakfast of Champions out.